Welcome, everyone. I'm Jeffrey Goodman, Director of Marketing and Development for the YMCA of Northwest Louisiana. And we're here at 318 Latino Studios for Shreveport-Bossier, my city, my community, my home. And we have a super special guest today. It's Betsy Boze. Betsy, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Betsy, we're going to just go ahead and jump in. In my opinion, you are one of our great local success stories. Graduating from Byrd High School, you went on to become, to name but a couple of the prestigious positions you've held, the president of the College of the Bahamas and CEO and dean of Kent State University at Stark. Through our discussion today, I want to learn about you, but I also want to lean on you to get your perspective on a number of things Shreveport-Bossier related. So let's start today with a fun fact that most people probably don't know. In 1970, you were responsible for the first recorded flying of the Earth Day flag. Tell me about this.
Well, that is correct. Earth Day had been created the year before, and there was a logo for it, but it was a two-dimensional logo, like a sticker or something. But there was never an actual three-dimensional flag. And so a friend pointed that out to me, and I'd already been into environmental things back way before that was cool. And he said, you know how to sew? And it's like, sure. So I sewed a very primitive Earth Day flag and wanted to fly it in front of Byrd for Earth Day. And the principal told me that was not allowed, that in Louisiana, we could only fly the U.S. flag and the state flag in front of public buildings, and that I would need to take that up with the legislature. So I wrote letters and talked to the governor and got permission to fly my little flag. And it's the first time that anybody knows of that it was ever flown or created.
And I came across an article, I think you still have the flag.
I do. It was in my mother's attic all these years, folded up neatly in the cedar chest away from insects and stuff. So for the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, during the pandemic, we worked with Byrd and flew it again and let it come out and symbolize. So.
And I saw this amazing photo, I guess, from you at Byrd back in the day, along with Jimmy Watson, who was, I guess, a sports reporter at Byrd at the time and is still with the Times today.
Yes. Yeah, we both were in the journalism class together and worked on the Byrd High Life.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right. So as I said, I want to lean on you for your perspective as someone who's lived. So my question is, as someone who has lived in 8 countries, is that right still?
At least, yeah.
At least 8 countries. In your opinion, what do you think is holding us back from becoming one of the next great medium-sized cities in America?
That's a complicated question, obviously. And the Community Foundation does a survey every year comparing us with similar sized cities in the South usually, and we don't fare very well. We can point to education that, without education, people don't have hope. And so I think a lot of our crime and our unemployment and stuff ties back to people not graduating from high school, not going on to college, and even not having broadband internet. I work with Shreve Memorial Library, and one of the things the foundation there has done is to help get broadband internet to neighborhoods where people don't have it. Because imagine trying to do your homework nowadays without that. Yes, we used to have a World Book Encyclopedia and a World Almanac and an unabridged dictionary and stuff, but nowadays, you tap on your phone and it's all there. But even your assignments are there and your grades are there and you can turn it in on internet. And if you don't have that, you're way behind the curve. So, I think if we can get broadband internet for everyone, if we can keep kids in school and give them a first-rate education, then they'll at least have hope for good jobs and a future. When you don't, that's when you get people that are going to turn to violence and gangs and the things that we don't want in Shreveport. They don't think they're going to live past 20 or 30 anyway, so what do they have to live for? Let's live now and live dangerously.
Yeah. No, I never even thought about that, about the broadband, and I know the digital divide, so makes total sense. Yeah. And just on the flip side of that, what gives you hope just as you look around as someone who's seen so much and been in so many different places around the world, what gives you hope as you look in 2024 at this community that we're headed in the right direction?
We've got a lot of good young people, and I think our trick is going to be to keep them. That our best and our brightest tend to leave Shreveport, and the more of them that we can recruit home, the better our community will be. I know when I graduated from high school, I couldn't wait to get out of here and had no intention of ever coming back. And I actually came back twice. I came back in the 80s to my first full-time teaching position after my PhD, and taught at Centenary and stayed there 7 years, long enough to earn tenure, and then left again for a job opportunity, and then came back here again. It's been almost 10 years now. And so, I love it, and I think most of the people here do, but we've got to keep them. So I think the arts scene is something else that is certainly happening in Shreveport and is hopeful for the community. That there's a lot going on here, more than I can personally do. And so I enjoy the Robinson and the symphony and the opera, and there's a lot of good things here. That can't turn a community around by itself, though. The facilities that arts take usually are the lower rent places that it's great that they're filling up downtown, but that's not going to bring in a lot of revenue for downtown. But I'm very excited that the arts are thriving here.
It's funny you said some of that. So my next question is not terribly different from my second question, but if someone came to you and said, you can have any 3 new additions to the Shreveport-Bossier community if your children and any children they may have will commit to stay and live in Shreveport-Bossier, what would those 3 additions or changes be?
3 changes I could make?
Or just, you don't have to make, you can just wish them to happen.
Oh, okay.
3 changes or 3 additions to this community. If your kids and their kids commit to staying in this community, you could have any 3 additions or changes. What would they be?
Wow. I would want, in fact, require a safer community. That I live in South Highlands, and I hear gunshots almost every night. And we have the webpage, and people will be looking and go, okay, where were the gunshots really? It sounded like Betty, Virginia Park, but it was actually over I-49 or something. And the number of random killings and the number of shootings and things for a community of this size is frightening. And so if I were to, commit my children and grandchildren to stay here, that would be certainly one of them. I have no interest in getting into city or parish government, but I think we have a problem with having one of the highest tax rates in the country, and very little to show for it. That our roads are not good, our sewage is not good, our water system is not good, our literacy level is not good. So we're paying the highest taxes and not getting what appears to be a lot of value for our tax rate. So that would be our second one, and that's a big one. What would be my third? That's a tough one. I guess better schools. That we've got a few private schools, but in terms of public schools, there are not a lot, there are not enough. And I would, being in education all my life, I would want a first-rate education for my children, grandchildren, and beyond.
Yeah, I think those are all great additions, and I think most people would agree with you.
Well, they're pretty, motherhood and apple pie, nothing controversial in any of those. Yeah.
Right. All right. So 2 major themes of our podcast, and I was telling you, we published episode 90 this morning. 2 major themes of this podcast are, who are we as a community, and trying to figure that out. And why do so many people in this community struggle with Shreveport-Bossier as their city and home? Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear your perspective on both of these questions. So my first question is simply, what is our identity in Shreveport-Bossier, in your opinion?
I'm not sure that we have a real strong identity, that it's not one that, we wrap ourselves around and, we're not New Orleans. We're not Houston with petroleum. We don't really have a one thing that comes to mind. We have a river, but we don't build the riverfront to like San Antonio or other great cities. And so I'm not sure what our identity is. It used to be an oil town, but that's not really us anymore. And so we're services, we're casinos and hospitals and things like that. But I don't think we have something that we're all proud of.
That's fascinating. Do you think that's problematic?
I think it'd be better if we had a very positive identity, whatever that might be. That, again, we're not a manufacturing town. We're not, I don't know. What do you think our identity is?
I agree. I mean, I think we struggle with it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, part of the pursuit of this podcast is to scratch that itch, to try and uncover maybe some potential answers to that question.
Yeah. I mean, could we be a communications hub or a electronics hub, or, could we be something? But right now, I really don't know what we are. And, I've been gone for a while. I spend a lot of my time here, over half my time. But I have homes in other places and responsibilities in other cities. And so I'm in and out. So I'm not the strongest person to ask about current stuff in Shreveport, but I don't know how I would describe it when a friend asked me.
And that's essentially what I'm asking you.
Yeah.
So, perfect. And then my final formal question for you is, to what do you attribute the prevailing negative self-image we often find among the people who live here?
Well, some of the same things I've talked about, that we don't trust government. We don't have the government services that we would hope in the way we hope in terms of roads and water and sewage and schools and all of that. The safety issue, the lack of good paying jobs for our graduates that would either, recruit back our college students that have gone away or keep our high school students that are going somewhere. And so keeping our youth and recruiting youth here with good jobs, I think is going to be so important. And it's a city that people often aren't proud of. Like I was saying, when I was graduating, get me out of here as soon as possible. And, as an adult, there's a lot going on in Shreveport. It's a nice family town and there are good things, but that's not a trade-off for good paying jobs and careers and things that will recruit and keep people. And
when I'm just curious, when you were in high school and you had that feeling of just get me out of here as fast as I could, what was behind that? Like, what do you think was the motivation for you feeling that way or thinking that way?
Wow. I guess I wanted a bigger city that had more amenities. I don't know that I could have verbalized it at that age, but Shreveport is a very conservative town. And my father was a history and government professor at Centenary and had lived abroad. And I don't consider myself liberal, but I am much more moderate than most of Shreveport. And it was so interconnected that I value that now, that those friendships are the same people I knew in kindergarten and high school are still some of my best friends. But at that point in my life, I wanted to kind of break out and not go to college with all the same people that I'd grown up with and lived with. Now we have reunions. And so we had a few years ago, we called it, Project Runaway. And about 30 of us that had all gone to everything together growing up. Some may have been at Shreve, some at Byrd, some at St. Vincent's, but we all went to church together, or we took ballroom dancing together, or whatever it was, but we'd woven in and out of each other's lives. And the people like that, you don't make those type of bonds as an adult. But as a child, it was like, no, this is too much. I want to break out and start a new life where, where I can be free and not have any of the baggage of hometown.
Right. That's interesting. Project Runaway. I love that. I've never heard that in my life.
Yeah.
So I told you before we started, I would have a kind of set questions, but I would give you all the space in the world if there were things that you wanted to talk about or discuss. Are there things I didn't hit that are important to you that you'd like to share or talk about?
Well, I think one of the things that's important to me is the Paul and Betty McDonald Foundation. And this is named after my mother, Betty McDonald, who was also born and raised in Shreveport, and her husband, Paul McDonald, my stepfather. And so we created a small family foundation, and I work closely with that. It's just the family, literally. And we do a lot with health in terms of Feistweiler Cancer Center, Shriners Hospital. We created a program called CATS at the Glen that stands for Culture, Arts, Technology, and Science. And so it's a monthly lecture series there. We do animal issues. We grave the pharmacy for Chimp Haven, and we give to Pet Savers and things like that. We do a lot with youth and with literacy, a lot of things that are just our pet passions, Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts, and many different organizations. And so that's one of my big pieces of my life right now.
And what's the best for someone listening today? What's the best way for someone to gather more information about the Paul and Betty McDonald Foundation?
We've been doing it just almost ad hoc, that organizations that either came to us or that we worked with or had a connection with, and or various things. We're going to a more formalized structure, and we will be getting applications, and I'll give a phone number that they can call to get one, and that's 861-0774. We're also going to try and work with Community Foundation to see if they can post that on their webpage and make it available either in person or through the webpage, because at this point we don't have a webpage for the foundation itself, that it is so small. But we're looking for new things, and so would love to partner with people to get the word out on that they're not huge grants, but they can make a difference.
And are you granting at a specific time every year? Or are you granting on an ongoing basis?
It's mostly at the end of the year. We usually start looking at them in about October or November and try and do it for the end of the year. But we've already made one sizable contribution this year that was time sensitive, and it needed to be completed by summer. So we made the contribution in January so they could be doing that. It was actually a misting system out at Chimp Haven, which is interesting because of the heat here and the warmer summers, they have to cool the chimps. And so this is a misting system like you'd have in bars or restaurants and sidewalks and things. And apparently the chimps like that and play in the water and cool off in that. And so we're funding the work to do 2 of those for them.
Love that. Is there anything else other than the Paul and Betty McDonald Foundation that you'd like to share, talk about?
One thing that's interesting that I doubt anybody watching this has seen or familiar with, I'm president of a group in Shreveport called the ERA Club, ERA, the ERA Civic Club, and it was something that my mother was in also. It has been around in Shreveport since 1902. And it is a group of women, and it started out as the women of influential men. And in 1902, the women did not have a lot of voice themselves. And so these women worked together to change school curriculums, to do a lot of things. And we've survived all this time and, still take on some service projects. And it's also an opportunity for us to learn about the community. So we will bring people in to inform us on things that we need to know more about as leaders ourselves in the community. And it's a small group, less than 30 people by statute, but one that, again, it's important to me as president of it, and something it's a really great group of women and something I really love.
And where do y'all meet, and how, if someone's listening and interested in that, how can they gather more information?
Yeah. We meet different places that back in the olden days when it started, they would usually meet at the hostess's home, but most of us are too busy to do that right now. And so we meet at different restaurants. We meet once a month. And there's not much about us out there. There's a lot in the archives at LSU, but it's not the kind of thing you can just apply for and be admitted to. That it's more word of mouth and people that we know will fit in and that have the same passion about Shreveport. So it's anyway, it's a great group and something that always happy to spread the word about it, but one that is unknown because we don't do a lot of publicity. We don't try to.
And did I miss it? Does ERA stand for anything in particular?
We don't know.
Okay.
And I keep wanting to go out to the archives because new members always ask me that. And we don't know if this was the Equal Rights Amendment given the time of women's suffrage and things in 1902, or whether because it was the turn of the century, it was a new era, or quite where the name came from. And I looked through the president's box that they pass on, hoping to find some glimmer. But I'm going to need to go out to the archives and find out. So it's embarrassing not to know, but but that's how I have to answer.
Well, and I'll confess, in all my research and just everything I've done over the last couple of years with this project, I've never come across the ERA Club either. So that's the first I've heard about it. So that's great. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
No, I think that covers it. That I'm happy to answer any more questions or go into more detail. I love Shreveport. I was born here. My mother was born here. My daughter is living in the house that my grandparents built. So, we're very big on both historic preservation and sort of the sentimentality of things. And I love the permanence that in that neighborhood, a lot of the people are the same people whose grandparents and parents built the homes there. And I don't know, it feels like home. And I travel a lot, as you may have seen, that I was in Antarctica last month. I'm off to New York in a couple of days. I'm going to Alaska on Friday. So I'm all over the place. But whenever I come back to Shreveport, I'm always home. And I have another home in Massachusetts, and I'm there a lot of the year, and my youngest son and his kids live there. And even though I'm there almost as much, I'm on vacation there. This is home. And I keep a horse here, and so this, wherever my horse is has to be home.
Well, let me just ask you kind of my final question. I think we do have a bit of an inferiority complex, or some people do here too. So having someone like you who's risen to great heights, what do you have any kind of advice or guidance or feedback for someone who's listening saying, I'm just from Shreveport, like I could never do that. Just what do you say to someone who's kind of looking at the bigger world saying, there's a glass ceiling for me?
Yeah. I was very fortunate in going to Southfield School. And Southfield was right behind our house and is still a fabulous school. But the teachers there would not tell a student that they couldn't do something. There were rules. There are things you may not do. That's you have to have that, or else it's chaos. But if you wanted to be the first whatever on the moon, they were not going to tell you you can't. And so it nurtured an imagination in all of us that we really could be anything we wanted to. And the kids in my class and the ones before and after did go on to have fabulous careers. People like Neil Johnson he was a year behind me, and they never told us we couldn't do this. So of course we went on to do this. And so I think that's what I would tell the others is that you're limited by your own expectations and your own dreams, and you can do it, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't.
I love that. I think we should end there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you.